So are you an old school Escalante lover and you're just disappointed when version 3 came about and it just became more of a shoe? It was a stiffer shoe, it had a tighter upper, and it didn't feel like that flexible friend that you used to have. Well, luckily now we have an update in the Escalante 4, and I'm here to find out if this is going to be a good update for you. So I'm Nick from Barefoot Run Review, and I focus on barefoot shoes and foot-shaped shoes. And today we're looking at the Altra Escalante 4, which is our flexible friend with that little bit of cushioning to help us go a bit further when we need to, or we are a little bit fatigued from all that barefoot running. So let's jump straight into it with the fit. So one of the standout features of this Escalante 4 is its fit. And most of this comes down to the change in upper. This upper is now a little bit more flexible than the Escalante 3, and harkening back to the Escalante 2 and the 2.5. And whereas I don't think the actual fit or the shape of the shoe has actually changed too much, this more flexible upper allows your foot to expand and is a little bit more forgiving if you have any pressure points. I do in the midfoot around here, but I just push out the upper a little bit more and it doesn't cause too much of an issue. I know depth was an issue with some people for the Escalante 3, and specifically in this toe box around here. And personally, I had the same thing. I used to change out the insoles just so I had a little bit more room. In this version, I've not had to do that at all. This flexible upper means that I haven't had much pressure on the toes, even though I'm still kind of touching the top. If this feels uncomfortable for you, obviously just switch out the upper, gain a bit more depth in there, and you'll be absolutely fine. And then looking into the depth of this midfoot around here, we've actually gone back to a thin tongue again. So in the Escalante 3, we had the thicker tongue. Before that, we had the thinner tongue. And that's actually allowed us to gain a little bit more depth around here. And it just feels a little bit more like a sock. And to be honest, it's super, super comfortable. Looking at the toe box, we've still got quite a lot of nice big toe room around here. So you can splay that big toe for good optimal foot health. And then also, it's still nicely squared without too much of a taper around the little toe side. Pretty confident that's going to be good for most people. Into the heel, we see a fairly flexible heel. It doesn't have any structure in there at all. And I found that I still have to have this lace lock in here to be able to get a good lockdown. But when I relaced it, after a few times on my first run, I found that the heel lock was absolutely perfect. So again, another plus point. Going back to this midfoot around here, this isn't actually the widest shoe on the market. I actually had this problem in the Lone Peaks as well. The midfoot of an Altra, they're not actually super, super wide. Obviously in the Lone Peak and also in the Torrens, you have the wider option, which does help a bit. In the Escalante, we just have the standard version. And I find it to be a little bit tight around here. I just have to go a bit more careful with the lacing and not over tighten it around this area. Whereas looking into this forefoot, I actually do have a lot more room to splay out, even more than some of the barefoot shoes that I run in, which is pretty good. For this shoe, I actually went completely true to size, which for me is a US men's size 9. My foot is about 26.5 centimeters long and a average width foot, and it's absolutely fine. That's one thing I kind of like about Altra. The sizing is fairly decent on most models, and for this one, true to size, absolutely through and through. Okay, let's get onto the feel of this shoe. So again, another big win for Escalante lovers. The feel of the shoe is kind of going back towards the direction prior to the Escalante 3. We've gained a little bit more flexibility, especially in that forefoot, and this cushioning underfoot is a lot softer. So I found on my first run, I was actually super surprised how soft this really felt, and even to the point of where I think it could be a bit unstable. So I felt a little uneasy when I was picking up the pace just because I felt like you lost a little bit of ground feel through that squishiness. A quick one, if you do like a lot more ground feel, go and check out the Escalante Racer. Really good shoe as well. But back to the Escalante 4, we've lost any type of rocker motion that we kind of felt in the Escalante 3. And instead, we just find this forefoot bend and, well, exactly how a foot should work, which is pretty cool. On the outsole, we actually just see a rubber outsole towards the forefoot here and a little bit around the heel. So we actually have exposed EVA around this midfoot here. And that's not too much of an issue on a road shoe. One thing is just don't take it onto the trails, or at least rocky trails, because you are going to scratch up or gash into this midsole material here, and it's just going to wear down much quicker. I didn't find any issues in the rain. I tried these out and it wasn't slippy at all. So I'm still pretty confident that the outsole will be fine in most road conditions. Talking about weight, these have come in about 234 grams per shoe for a US men's size 9, which is kind of on the lighter side, which is pretty cool. And at a 24 mil stack height, I think this is really a sweet spot for me specifically for those long range efforts. For many other people, maybe to their medium efforts. So if you're going for a marathon, then a half marathon shoe could be this, but it all depends on your physiology and what you're used to. The example being, I'm a barefoot runner normally, so I can actually take this shoe much, much longer because of the foot strength and the lower leg strength that I gain through barefoot running. So just listen to your own body. So thinking about the durability of this shoe. Now, Altra aren't known for their super durable shoes. And to be honest, it's a bit of a shame. Looking at this upper, it is super flexible again, and it is this weaved knit-like material. And when we've seen this in the past from Altra, we've actually seen people splitting out of the side or spilling out of the side and causing some tearing. I really hope this isn't going to be the case yet. From what I've heard from some people, they've not had this issue and they think they're going to get them, well, thousands of miles. I'm not so sure personally. I definitely think we're going to be in that range of 500, 600, 700 kilometers. Another reason why I believe this is because this midsole foam is a little bit softer. I don't believe that we're going to get that plushness that we first feel out of the box for a long period of time. Again, typical of Altra shoes, they usually flatten out a little bit quicker. And that's all I can go on right now. I've got about 70 kilometers on these right now, and they're still feeling pretty plush, I would say. So at the moment, it's speculation. I can't say that it's a definite. And then looking at the outsole, obviously we lost a bit of rubber, but not in those high wear areas. So again, I don't think this is going to be the thing that goes first. Lastly, this inner liner, it's like this silky material that we've seen from Altra in the Torrens. If you do have some friction, I don't think it'll wear through too quickly because it's softer and a little bit more smooth. It will reduce friction and therefore reduce any holes from being created. So the inner liner, probably fine, I would say. So the biggest thing is to just make sure that you're not pushing out the sides too much on this forefoot, at least anyway, and not over tightening in this area. Oh, and one last thing to mention, because of this toe box being a little, it's not quite deep enough for some people. If you're a toe lifter, so some people lift their big toes, then you could actually wear through this upper in the toe box around here fairly quickly. If you do that, maybe switch out that insole for something a bit thinner, just to get you a bit more depth and maybe reduce that risk. Otherwise, I think we'll just have an average shoe for durability here. So in conclusion, so even though I may have sounded a little bit negative in some of those aspects, I still think this Escalante 4 is a massive upgrade on the Escalante 3. Now we've seen that updating the upper and making it a lot more comfortable again and more of that casual shoe that actually a lot of people love the Escalante 4. I think it's actually gone back to the more old school days, whereas still kind of retaining some of the newer school kind of feel of a shoe. And then adding that onto the softness of the midsole, it just feels that whole lot more comfortable. And I think that's what they're going for here, that flexible, comfortable feeling that you used to get from Escalantes. It's a great upgrade in terms of that. We're looking at $130 here, which is pretty good. It's not breaking the bank. If you're still looking at the Escalante 3, I'd probably say this is likely worth the money for most people. But if you really are looking for a shoe that's more rigid and the upper is more fitted, then yeah, the Escalante 3 could still work for you. Personally, I still think this 4 is much, much better. So that's about it for a review for the Escalante 4. I'm also testing the Escalante Racer right now. And for me, it's actually been really enjoyable. I've already run a 5K PR in it, and I'm looking forward to bringing some of the results to you. Stay tuned in for that. And if you want to check out a full written review for the Escalante 4, you can head over to Barefoot Run Review. I have lots of different Altra reviews. I have barefoot shoe reviews like Zero Shoes, Vivo Barefoot, and some of the smaller brands that you may not have heard of before. Also, just put some questions down in the comments if you want to know anything specific about this shoe. I'm absolutely happy to answer those questions. And yeah, enjoy the old school, new school Escalante.